Welcome back to Black Bear Forge and another chilly morning here in the blacksmith shop. Last week I managed to get a little bit ahead making videos, so I didn't have to do any over the weekend, and we managed to go to the Beulah's Parade of Lights and enjoy some of the Christmas scenes. And then yesterday we attended the annual Hunt for the Yule Log. Beulah is one of the few places in the nation that still has a Yule log hunt, and it's always a wonderful time. The kids love it, the adults have a lot of fun. Anybody that wants to gets to go out and hunt for the Yule log. Then it's drugged back where it's cut in half, and half of it is burned in this year's fire, and half of it is saved to start next year's Christmas fire. But today, I think we need to get to work, and we are going to make some Jingle Bells. I'm using some pre-cut blanks from Stoney Point Forge. This is the same place we got the cowbell blank we looked at earlier. And he has lots of different pre-cut sheet metal blanks for all sorts of different projects. I think for doing these Jingle Bells, that's a great way to go. The time involved in cutting these out yourself is a lot of work. Not bad if you're doing one or two, but if you want to do a whole set, or if you want to give them to everybody in the family or everybody at the office, you save tons of time by having them pre-cut. And I don't think the finished project shows the signs that it was cut by hand. So there's not a lot of reason to go that route. We're going to work right off of the included instructions because I've never made a Jingle Bell before, so this is my first go at this project as well. Let's head over to the forge and warm the shop up a little bit. Now this is a project that is going to require a little bit of special tooling. The big thing is probably some ball tools, and each size bell needs a different size ball tool, and the sizes are listed in the instructions. For the large bell, you need a 2-inch ball. Now my tools are made out of large ball bearings, and I made these in 3 different sizes, and I hope I got this right. The instructions talk about a 2-inch bell and a 1.5-inch bell, but he now provides 3 sizes of bell blanks. So I'm hoping this is the 2, the 1.5, and then I went with a 1 1/4 ball tool for the smaller one. We'll see if that turns out to be right. And these are ball bearings I bought online. I bought them at McMaster Car, and it was about $30 for all 3 ball bearings. The 2-inch one is way more expensive than the smaller ones. Another option for a 2-inch ball is a trailer hitch, and this is what he talks about in his instructions for the tooling. So you can make a ball tool out of this and either just drive it on that shank, or you could make a socketed handle for it, whatever it is you want to do. The other thing you need is something to work these down into. So with your ball tool, you have to have a bottom swedge, and you can use just a piece of pipe, but make sure you round this inner corner up very nicely, or you're going to leave real bad gouge marks in the outside of your work as you drive it down in here. And you need a different size pipe for each size bell. Personally, I'm going to go ahead and use swedge blocks because I have swedge blocks with these different sizes in them. But if you don't, the pipe isn't bad. And another thing you can do to ease the edge is forge a ring that fits the pipe. This ring is way too big. And weld it to the top of the pipe so that you've got this nice radius on your ring for your socket. And Stoney Point Forge does make a set of tools for these, so you can buy most of these tools from him. I think he sells a kit that has a few blanks, plus the tools. You'll need to talk to him about that. I'm not sure what the details are. I thought about buying one before I got started, but I never got around to it, so I went ahead and made the tools. But it would be interesting to try out his purpose-made tools, so maybe by next year I'll get around to buying those and we'll see how they work. And of course, if you want to hold on to your bell to ring it, or hang it from the Christmas tree, or mount it to a leather strap for decoration, or for a horse harness if you want to make a whole set of these as real sleigh bells. And the typical handle is just a round rod handle that's wrapped around and tenoned onto the inside of the bell. So we're going to do that out of 1/4-inch round bar, and I'm only going to do that to one of these bells. And I'll explain to you why and show you what my other idea is when we get to some of the other bells. So maybe I'll do the medium bell this way, and I will do the small and large bell with some other options, just because you don't all have to do them the same. There's lots of different ways you can do these. So let's get this hot, and let's make the handle first. The first thing I want to do is just create a nice, long, graceful taper. It will kind of wrap around the base of the ring after we forge the ring. Exact size of this is just up to personal preference. So that's forged out square. We'll get it hot again. We'll go to octagon and then round. And just round this up nice and clean. This is something people are going to want to hold on to and ring the bell, and they're going to have their hands all over this, so make it smooth. If it's rough and coarse, it'll be kind of a turn-off. But I am going to come part way up the round bar in one sense to help blend the taper, and in another just to give it a little bit of character. I don't want to heavily texture it, I just want to take the factory smooth out of it. And if you're concerned about this being too coarse and too rough, before we do anything else, take time to sand it. And I think that'll be very good. Now we want to make a ring out of it. And to do that, I'm just going to use this little welded up jig. And I'm going to put a lot of this through there because I want a nice wrap around the shank. And I'm going to bring this all the way around so that it overlaps. Because of this little pin that I have here, I can then also bring this back down. It's a bit of a long heat, which is why this is so floppy. You can just kind of clean all this up a little bit. The nicer and rounder this ring is, I think the better this project will look. So put that in the vise so we can wrap this around. Now, this is a great place for a torch so you can really get this wrapped tight. You heat just the part you want to bend, but you can wrap it without. Luckily, as it gets smaller, it wraps easier, so not as big a deal that it isn't real hot. Make sure you get that sharp point tucked in. Now we just need to kind of straighten the ring out on the end. This is actually the second ring. Forgot to turn the camera on when I did this twist the first time. So I went ahead and did a second ring to be able to show that to you. Our next step then will be to dish the bell, and we'll do that in the swedge block. I don't know if I have a swedge block exactly the size I should have for this, but we'll see how it goes. Now the instructions for this medium-sized bell call for a 2-inch pipe. I'm at 2.5 here, so this is better size for the large bell probably. This one's just a little under. We might be able to use it. This depression in the swedge is what markedly under. It's about 1.75 inches, so I think that's way too small. And this one's about 2.25 inches, so I think it's probably too big. So we're going to see what we can do with what we have. And if it doesn't work, I may have to go find a piece of pipe to do this. And for future versions of this, I may go ahead and make tools or buy the tools from Stoney Point Forge. So we'll put that right over the swedge and drive the center down. Keep an eye on it. If it's not moving centered, move it around till it is. I'm going to work not just in the center, just to spread the impression around and hammer marks around. Like I say, I think this one may just be a hair small. It's working, but not great. Let's move over to this other one. We can make it a little bit deeper. So I think there's going to be a little fiddling. I think taking the time to make the right size pipe tools would make a big difference here. Now these areas between the lobes don't want to bend very evenly. There's nothing making them bend. They don't engage the sides of the swedge real well. So you may want to just come back and work them separate. It's not something that's in the instructions, just an observation of mine. But I think that's getting what we want. And you can see a little line around here from the edge of the swedge. That's why you need to round that up, and that's less likely to happen. I'm just going to try and clean up the outer circle here and work my way part way up these lobes. You can't do too much this way or you end up closing them, and then your tool is stuck on the inside. But you can do a little bit. I've seen some people that start by doing the lobes this way, but I'm not sure how they end up getting an accurate bend on the back of the bell, and they end up with kind of flat bells, which don't appeal to me as much as the round back. So there'll always be some fussing and fiddling. But when you're happy with that, it'll be time to put the handle on there. And I'm pretty happy with that at this point, I think. Looks like that one's a little bit unruly still. Yeah, I think that's better. So I'm going to let that cool. Let's take a look at these other bells real quick. And I put some layout dye on here and then drew some simple little heart shapes with my silver pencil. And then I've gone through with a center punch and I've just punched that line. And you can do lots of fairly simple things, little scrolls. You might be able to do some flowers, but if you get too complicated, the center punches just look like a bunch of random dots. So I like simple lines better for this kind of a decoration. And we'll see what that looks like. Now somebody else that's got some bells out there on YouTube does them in a leaf motif. And I will try to link to that video right here in the top corner. I can't remember what his name is now, but I'll find it and link to it. So we can put some leaf veins on here. We'll do this to the smaller bell and see what it looks like. This is also a good time to put your touch mark on here, either hot or cold, depending on what your touch mark needs. Well, I have 3 sizes of bells forged out here. They're all just a little bit different. And as I said, I think before I do any more, I'm either going to make the tooling exactly like he says with the 2.5-inch pipe for the large bell, 2-inch pipe for the medium-sized bell, and then I'm going to have to send him an email and I'll find out what this small bell ought to be made out of. But in any case, this is going to work. We are going to get decent bells. I know that because I went ahead and finished one. And it sounds way better than any other bell I've ever made here in the shop. But we only have one handle right now, and that one I was planning on putting on the medium-sized bell. And that'll be very similar to this one, which is also one of the medium-sized bells. So we're going to look at doing that. And then I'm going to show you what I've done with these other two, even though I've already done most of it off camera. So the medium bell has a handle that I've cut down, leaving about a 1/2 inch of 1/4 inch round bar sticking out past this wrap. I'm going to drill a 1/4 inch hole in the back of the bell, and then we can insert this through the hole. So that then will look something like that, and it leaves a little stub on the inside of the bell. And that gives us a couple of options for how to attach this. You can certainly heat that up with a torch and just peen it over. It's going to be hard to get a hammer in there, so you might have to use some sort of a punch or rivet set. Probably it's going to be a little loose and wobbly. I think that will affect the way the bell rings, and it certainly is a distraction if it's like that. I think because these are plasma cut blanks, relatively contemporary project, I think sleigh bells historically were not made by blacksmiths. So I think this is one where I'm going to weld it. You could certainly weld it with a torch. You could weld it with a MIG welder, TIG welder, whatever it is you want to do. But I'm just going to go ahead and weld this in there, and you don't need to watch me do that because there are lots better people out there to show you how to weld. And to prove that point, I'll show you what I've done with these other two bells. I've welded a nut on the inside of the large one. This is a 3/8 nut, and we're going to drill out the bottom. It's still got the little just under 1/4 inch hole in the bottom. This one I drilled a 1/4 inch hole in, and it is only going to get a bolt in the back, and this way you can bolt it down or screw it. I'll probably use round 1/4 inch screws with a slotted head, and you can easily mount it to a leather strap that way. Very neat, clean way to do that. Ugly weld on the inside. I'm hoping that doesn't show if you peer through the cracks of the bell. But on the larger one, I've got the nut on there, but it isn't drilled all the way through, so I'm going to run the tap drill size from the inside through the nut. And that way it's exactly the minor diameter of the screw that will go in there. And that was a 5/16 drill as the tap drill. By drilling down through the nut, it guides it perfectly through the outside shell so the holes line up just right, and provides me a pre-threaded guide for my tap. And now I'm tapping the outer shell right along with cleaning up any garbage from welding inside the nut. And that'll be a very secure threaded connection then. And this one I'm going to turn a wooden handle for, and I'll put a little threaded rod into the wooden handle that will thread into here. So this will be a handheld sleigh bell as opposed to a harness type sleigh bell. I don't know if we'll get to that today or not. I'd like to do it, but this video might be late if I try to do that. So I may just show you what I did in a later video, or maybe do a part 2 of this video just to show that. So let's see if we can finish these up. I'm going to go weld this off camera. And then we also have a little baggie of ball bearings. These are about 3/8 round ball bearings that he supplies with the bells. So this is what the ringer on the inside will be. The written instructions that came with the bell blanks recommends using a torch to bend the outer lobes to form the bell. I did that first one in the forge and it was problematic. It was too much heat, so we're going to use the torch for this. He says a regular propane torch will also work, so even if you don't have an oxyacetylene torch, you're probably in pretty good shape. Make sure you have your ball bearing on hand before you start this. Just want to round these till they almost go to the center, but you don't want to go all the way or they'll touch. I think I'm going to work a little on each one. Just don't close them up till you get the ball bearing in there. Now some people will dish these lobes in the swedge, and that's not a bad idea, but it gets hard to dish the bottom, dish the lobes, and do all that and get it all to close up nicely. So at some point you're doing this freehand like this. If they're not going in evenly, pay attention to where you need to heat it so that it will go in evenly. I think this might look kind of funny if the four lobes point in opposite directions, or don't come together so they're pointing at each other, I should say. So trying to steer them so they do that makes sense. You can already hear that. That's pretty much it. It should sound a little bit better as it cools. That one's a little flat, doesn't really hurt anything. I think as we do more of these, we'll get a lot better at them. Now here's where I probably ought to leave well enough alone and just call this good. But I'm going to go back to the swedge block and see if I can work that little transition between the base of the bell and the lobes, where it's just a little bit puckery or kinky and just doesn't look as good as I think it can. So hopefully I don't ruin this. So it's just this kind of odd spots here that I want to try and fix. I'm going to support the bottom of the swedge, and I'm going to do this cold. In hopes that I don't go too far and crush something. Okay, you can see I'm getting some of this closed up a little bit too far here. So I think keeping these even is every bit as important. So trying to keep on top of that is probably a good idea. But there does come a point where I think you just have to call it done. Now for a finish, we could heat this up and wax it. We could wire brush it as silver and bright as we possibly can with a power wire brush. We can bronze brush it. Lots of different options for a finish. I think this one I'm going to go just wire brush and clean it up as much as I can with a power wire brush. You folks have now journeyed with me on my entire sleigh bell making experience. These are still a little bit rough, and I can see where they can become a real obsession trying to get them perfectly round or at least perfectly symmetrical. All of these have some little kinks and bumps that I'm not really happy with, but they sound good. This large one I really like the sound of. There's the small one. Nice high-pitched sound, I like that too. Probably like the large one and the small one the best, but there's nothing wrong with these medium-sized bells, and they all sound good. So we can harness up one of the cats and go for a sleigh ride. Anyways, that's just a quick look at making sleigh bells with the Stoney Point Forge sleigh bell blanks, following the instructions as close as I could. Once again, I'll say I think I need to make tooling that is better suited for these. The swedge that does a better job probably will make a big difference. I think I might take some other approaches, try some other decorations. This large one, instead of the bolt for a handle, I'm going to make a wooden handle. And I think we will have a part 2 of sleigh bells just to look at some other options and see if I can refine some of this. I may look at buying his kit to make the sleigh bells with. Hopefully I can get that before Christmas, but it may be too late for you folks to make them. So if you're thinking of making them, you probably ought to run over there and order it real quick before I do, or I might beat you to it. But in any case, it's a fun project, and even a little lumpy and bumpy, I think these would make a great gift, and they'd sound good hanging from your front door when people come over and the door opens and the bells ring. You can mount these with the bolt in the back, right through a leather strap, and put a big series of these, either all the same size or different sizes, to have a set of sleigh bells. If you're just hanging one, the little ring works. But if you want to just play with it and ring it by hand, I think the wooden handle is going to be the way to go, and we'll look at that in a future video. I'm going to go through YouTube this evening, find some other sleigh bell videos that some other blacksmiths have done, and I will link to that playlist up here in this corner, so it'll be this video. When I do the second part of this, we'll put that in the playlist, but anything else I find I'll add to the playlist. If you have a particular favorite sleigh bell video that I don't have in the playlist, put a link down in the comment section and I'll add that to the playlist. I think it pays to look at a lot of other people's techniques when you take on a project like this, so that you have ideas of what works, what doesn't work. Do you like this person's approach better than somebody else's? Mine is certainly not the end-all be-all in making sleigh bells. Many thanks to those who suggested the Jingle Bells as one of our holiday projects, including County Line Forge. What was that? Oh wait, that was his username. BC65925 and Southern Junior, plus a few people that emailed privately and sent other messages. So this was a very heavily requested project. Like I said, we'll do a part 2. I had fun making the video. I hope you had fun watching it and give it a thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, I'd love it if you hit that subscribe button. Stick around, watch a few of the other videos, share the videos with your friends, but then make time in your day to get out to your shop and make something. But stay safe, wear your safety glasses, and we'll see you for the next one.